that's great, but then in the actual Grand Prix, he started P18 and didn't finish until P9. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no consistency.
Honestly, until Lance Stroll does something in the race, I always forget he's there. I always forget he is in Formula One.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Wheel It Up. It is your girl Chanise and Simone here, and we are super excited to talk to you this week on our thoughts of the Chinese Grand Prix, Shanghai. It's the first time we saw it in about 4 or 5 years. Crazy. Simone, should we just go straight into it? Should we take a lap and just talk about the race?
It's time to take a lap.
Hi everyone. A very tired Simone here because I was working the FA yesterday.
And that's another reason why I was cutting straight into it, because I did know you were tired. So I was like, let's not keep it too long. Let's not drag it out, Simone. Let's just get into it.
Very, very shattered. But you're right. It has actually been 5 years. It's 2019 since the last race in China, which actually has flown by. Like, I think COVID just knocked everything out of sync because, wow, 5 years. It's a long time. But it almost doesn't seem like it was a long time, which is really weird.
Yeah, it doesn't. But I don't know. I think there's a couple of races this year that aren't in the season. And I don't think they were in last season either. Like the French Grand Prix. I don't remember that being in last year. But I think that's another one that we kind of like haven't seen. There's certain races that you just don't see for a while and then they pop back up. So it doesn't feel any type of way for me. I'm like, oh, it's just back. I was, very excited about it being back, but that's mainly just because I think the only reason we haven't seen it is because of COVID, not because they just decided, oh, we're not going to have it this year.
Well, yeah, let's get into the weekend.
Yeah, the weekend. There's lots to talk about. There was a sprint race, but I don't know, we'll get into our thoughts of that. Sprints, restarts, penalties, and crashes.
Yeah.
It did make it for quite an interesting race. I'm not going to lie. It did exhaust me by the end of it, though. I was genuinely tired after watching this race just because of so many things like going on and different things happening.
For a 56 lap race, though, I thought it was quite long. Like, it was 56 laps. But I was like, oh my God, when is this going to finish? I didn't find it that interesting.
Yeah, sorry. I was just looking at something else. Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, but also I just felt like there was a lot to keep up with, and maybe it felt longer just because of like the safety cars coming out. And is it going to be I think they kept saying that there's a virtual safety car, sorry, is there going to be a safety car? Oh, and then there was a safety car, and it was just very staggered. I don't know how to, it was just things just happening one after another that I had to keep up with.
Yeah, it didn't help that I was getting ready for work while I was also watching the race. So, I was frying some plantain while the race was going on. So there was a lot of back and forth, and I also had to jump in the shower to get ready for work. So yeah, it was a pretty mad morning.
Yeah, that is fair enough. Your morning sounds as chaotic as the race does at some points. I'm like frying plantain. Like that, I think I'm running backwards and forwards between the plantain and the race. What's going on now? What I wanted to talk about to start with, and I wanted other people's opinions on this as well. Obviously, me and Simone have chatted about it, but I did want people who listen to us or watch this podcast, I do want other people's opinions. What is everyone's thoughts on the sprint races and the sprint weekends in general? Because I genuinely think, don't hate me for saying this, am I a terrible F1 fan for saying this, but does a sprint race make or give too much F1? Is it too much Formula One? I feel like as a fan, I either want to watch the sprint race or I want to watch the Grand Prix. I don't feel like I can do both. If as well you're trying to keep up with like practice, qualifying, weeks on end. I just feel like these sprint races are a bit too much. And I was watching a clip of Alonso at the end of the main Grand Prix, and they were basically saying, oh, why did you change to soft tires? And to cut a long story short, he basically said, well, we had one set of hard tires left, and after that safety car, we pretty much lost you know, those hard tires. So we could only really go on to what he thought was anyway better strategy was softs. And it's like, but if you didn't have a sprint race, that wouldn't be the case. And even he was saying that, so, you know, maybe we shouldn't do a sprint race. So I feel like even some of the drivers think like this, Simone.
It is a very packed weekend. You've got on Friday, you have a free practice one, then you've got sprint quali. And on Saturday, you have sprint, and then you have qualifying. Not to be confused with the sprint quali, which is different. And then
Exactly.
Sunday, you have the race. There is actually quite a lot that happens in this weekend. And the only reason why I sort of semi enjoyed the sprint weekend this weekend was because Lewis was second. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. Apart from that, like they're highly inconvenient for people because there's so much racing going on. And I get it's a money thing. It's to attract a lot of people in different countries to watch it, and it gives you like short races in a small amount of time where you get to see what the drivers can do. Obviously, you get points as well for this and whatnot, but it almost is like it's a lot. I think I said this last season. I don't really care for them. Like I'm just here for a quali and a race.
Mm-hmm. I feel like you hit the nail on the head as well, actually, when you mentioned money, because I thought the only benefit a sprint race has to anyone is Formula One for just having extra ticket sales. Like if you can't get a ticket to the Grand Prix, then fair enough, you'll go to the sprint race. I feel like that's the only benefit, because it doesn't really seem to be a benefit to like the drivers. Because if you mess up in a sprint race, if you mash up your car, that could throw you out for the whole weekend. And also, I think the only consistency for a sprint race is that Max wins both. There's no other consistency. Like Lewis being P2, that's great. But then in the actual Grand Prix, he started P18 and didn't finish until P9. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no consistency. You think, oh, if you watch a sprint race, it might give you a good idea of what's going to happen on race weekend. Oscar Piastri won a sprint race, but he's not won a race weekend. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't always give you an indication, but I get it. Like the sprint is like it's 100 kilometers, if I'm correct, 100 kilometers of racing. And it's almost basically like you're just trying to see who's the fastest in this short amount of time, bar an actual race.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really for like, I want to say new fans and
Yeah.
money.
And to be fair, lots of sport are doing this similar kind of thing. If you think
Mm.
about cricket in the 100, and I know we said this last
Yeah,
season,
yeah,
it's a really similar thing. It's like, you know, you have 100 balls and that's it. So it is trying to encourage like younger people and new fans to watch the races because it's a shorter form of Formula One. But then it feels like, and that is like, you know, I guess a gateway into watching the actual race in the actual Grand Prix. But what if they're isolating a type of audience because you don't have time to watch it all? Just because you watch a sprint race don't mean you're going to have time to then watch a Grand Prix. I don't know. Like, do you know what I'm saying? I just feel like it's too much for me. I can't keep up.
it's your whole weekend gone.
It's your
If you're really
whole weekend gone.
if
And
you're
if you think
dedicated.
about... No, you go. What are you going to
As I say,
say?
it's your whole weekend gone if you're dedicated to actually watching it all. But I suppose if it's you're only watching it like sporadically because like the sprints were early. They were like at 8 o'clock in the morning. Like quali was early. The race was at 8. So I guess that's the only benefit is they're short, they're quick, but it's like, damn, I've still got to get up and watch this. I've still got to get up and set my alarm to watch this.
Yeah.
You might want to lie in on a Saturday and a Sunday, and it's like, no, you might not get that because
Exactly.
you wanna get up and watch it. And the thing is, though, with these things, it's like a lot of people want to watch it live. You don't want to watch a replay of it because you know if you go on social media, you go on Twitter or Instagram, like it's already done, like it's already out there what's happened. So it's like if you miss it live, you're just playing catch up to what's on the internet.
Yeah. And I also think if you think about like young people's time now, you know, you have to, not only is your whole weekend gone, you have to dedicate your time to it. And people struggle these days dedicating their time for literal just me time, let alone a whole race weekend time. So, you know, and everyone's attention spans are so much shorter now. Like, I don't think it needs to be one or the other. I think they need to decide, okay, on this weekend or on this day, it's going to be a sprint race. It's going to be all about the sprint race. And on this weekend, it's going to all be about the main Grand Prix.
I don't think you can separate it like that though. I don't
Yeah,
think that would work.
you could. You could just have, like how we've got like race like gaps in the season where there's no race weekend. Well, that weekend could be a sprint race weekend rather than it being a whole Grand Prix.
I think they just want to rest on those weekends.
Yeah, agreed. No one wants the drivers to rest more than me, but if they're gonna keep doing these sprint races, I just feel like it needs to be a better way of doing it. It has to be.
Well, enough about sprint races. Let's get into the actual race.
Yeah, we'll take a lap now. Talk about the actual race. Well, I said I really enjoyed it, but Simone, you didn't enjoy it as much. You said it was long.
Yeah, it was a long 56 laps for me. It was okay. It wasn't that I found it that exciting, to be fair. Like there was a little bits of things that happened. Like Max had a really good start. Like I said, yeah, Max had a really good start. Alonso overtook Perez at the start of the race, but obviously he dropped back a lot. And I was like, this is quite funny because Lando was in and around that bunch at the start, and I remember his engineer coming in the radio and saying, "Hey, just wait a minute because Alonso's using a lot of his tires. Just wait, he's using a lot of his tires, so you're going to be able to catch it." And he obviously eventually did, which was good. So Lewis started P18, which was really sad to see him so low down. George was P8, and it was like, what is going on here? But they actually changed their setup from the sprint race on the weekends, so that's why they were so far apart actually the qualifying, because actually in the sprint race Lewis qualified P2 and George was P8, but when it came to actual qualifying, Lewis was P18 and George was P8, and it was like, what on earth is happening here? But during the race, Lewis had he had a number of moments where you could just hear the frustration in his voice on the radio, and just like, man, these cars are so fast. He's always saying these cars are really fast. These cars are way better than ours. And even in one of his pit stops, he was, man, that was not good. Like he just was not feeling it. And it's like to hear the frustration in him. But he still keeps on smiling and he still keeps on going. And I'm like, I wish I had your kind of resilience, because after a bad day, I'm just like, I'm over it. One thing could go wrong and I'm just like, no, I've had enough of this. Yeah, so Lewis finished the race P9 and George P6. But yeah, Mercedes are like nowhere to be seen, really. They're not really a threat for anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about all the incidents that happened during the restart process. So hopefully you already know about what happened with Bottas's car. Basically, he had an engine failure, which caused him to have to park up and essentially not finish. But after that time, during the moment of, there was at one point a virtual safety car, then they brought out a safety car. Everyone was getting in line and getting information ready to kind of have a bit of a restart. So imagine you're just mentally preparing yourself. All right, everyone, let's slow down. Let's get into the right order. No overtakes, although something like that might have happened. And essentially, during that time when all the drivers were slowing down, Lance Stroll hit Daniel Ricciardo. There was two different incidents, and that was the first one from my memory in that order. And I don't know, Simone, for me it was just the stupidest thing I'd ever seen. You can clearly see Lance Stroll driving along, turned his head to the right because he's going to go around a corner and to look this way, but there's a car in front of him. He's not clocking properly, like he's not switching on. There's a car right there, everyone's slowing right down, and I'm not saying he's speeding up, but he's still not going slow enough where he's not going to hit the car in front. Now, there was this whole conversation about, who was in the wrong. Lance doesn't seem to think he's in the wrong. He's like, oh, it's just a general driving, a general issue when these things happen, when you're slowing down or whatever. But the issue is, and Daniel Ricciardo rightly pointed this out, is that, well, nobody else crashed when we were all slowing down.
You were in the safety car and everyone was going slow, but like they were right. You were right behind him. How did you crash into him? Like, I don't know. I don't understand. Because it's not like you couldn't see him. He's right in front of you.
He is rather, but I think he just wasn't paying attention. This is what I mean. I just don't think he was switched on enough. You see his head turn to be like, right, okay, we're going to get around it. But I think he's thinking that the driver in front is going to speed up a little bit, or, you know, go at the same speed. It's just go at a similar speed to him, but that's not going to happen. You have to stay focused on the driver that you're behind, that you're in front of. No, that I've said that right, that you're behind.
Yeah, and also you're driving. Honestly, until Lance Stroll does something in the race, I always forget he's there. I always forget he is in Formula One. I always forget he's on the track until something happened. Unless there's a collision or something, I always forget, oh my God, Lance Stroll, like he never comes to my mind.
I feel a bit sorry for him in a way, because I saw an interview clip with him afterwards where he was basically talking about what happened and why it happened. And it just felt like he couldn't be bothered. Like, it just felt like he can't. I mean, maybe he couldn't be bothered with the interview and he just thought, oh, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't want to talk about this again. But it just felt like he just couldn't be bothered. And it's giving the same energy when he was in the race, when he went into Daniel Ricciardo, because he's just like, and he didn't even seem apologetic. I mean, you've just literally dropped a whole driver out of their race.
I know, and up until that point, Daniel wasn't even doing too badly.
I honestly thought he could have been a star boy potential this week. I was really excited about his race.
I remember Crofty saying, boy, if Daniel doesn't have bad luck, he doesn't have anything at all. He doesn't have any luck at all. Like, if it's just not that, it's just nothing. Because it's just been a series of incidents and things that have just gone against him ever since he came back in Formula One. I don't know, maybe someone's telling you shouldn't be here.
Maybe it's a sign. Didn't we say this last episode?
I don't remember.
I feel like we said this. We've definitely mentioned this at some point. Yeah, so that was the first instance, which was one that I thought probably could have been avoided, but it's whatever. Now, the second incident while all this is going on, and this is the one that really bothered me, and I could hear as well Nico Rosberg when he was commentating, it also bothered him. I could hear the stress in his voice, and I was like, this is exactly how I feel.
Not stress.
When it was stress, you know, when your voice is starting to stress, and you're like, oh, it's that kind of thing in your voice. So the second incident that happened was was Magnussen driving into Yuki Tsunoda and spinning him off the road. The reason why this one bothered me was because not only again have you cut one driver's their whole race short, can't even finish, it was so unnecessary. And the word that I wrote down when I was making notes on that is unnecessary. I wrote that down, and it's just really funny because Nico Rosberg said the same thing. He was just like, it's just aggressive driving. It was really unnecessary the way that happened. And I'm like, right, this is what I've said before. Magnussen and his aggressive driving is smashing people up. Do you remember a couple of races ago, or was it the last? No, I think it was a couple of races ago, where his aggressive driving got him like a 20-second penalty. It was like two separate or three separate incidents where he had all these penalties, and he was almost voted as driver for the day because he helped out his teammate.
Oh yeah, and I was like, that the way they went about that over there was at Haas was just ridiculous. Like, he was racking up penalties like they were giving out candy. It was ridiculous. It's silly. I was like, what's happening here?
And the thing is, so there was another comment made. I think it might have been earlier in the race actually. Where who was it now? It was Magnussen was driving against someone. I can't remember who it was, but it was for P16, and all the commentators were really excited. They were like, "Whoa, these guys are fighting it out as if it was for P1, you know, as if this was."
Oh yeah. I remember that. That was back down at the bottom of the grid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was exciting. Don't get me wrong, but this sort of aggressive driving, it's not helpful.
Yeah. I mean, that led to both RB cars being out, like just not running. It was like blooming hell.
A terrible weekend for RB. Terrible. And the worst thing was, genuinely, is that, well, for Yuki Tsunoda, it wasn't even his fault. Well, for both of them, it wasn't his fault. Daniel Ricciardo, it wasn't his fault. It was just stupid and unnecessary, I thought.
And then we've got Bottas retiring because of engine failure to his car. And I swear this guy cannot catch a break. Like, I feel like every week there's something with Bottas. There's just something with that steak and chips Sauber team that they are just not getting it right. Like there's just something. And I just saw on social media earlier on that while Red Bull were doing their pit stops, Bottas was actually just standing there watching, being an observant, keen learner, like, what are they doing with their pit stops over there? Like he was proper, like he looked like he was taking mental notes to
You
get
have to
back to
learn
the
from the
team.
best.
And
You
we've
have
been
to.
saying this, like go to Red Bull, do some work experience, get your pit stops up to scratch because they are awful at Sauber. They are awful. Like he has the record for the longest pit stops, and that's not a record that you want. Like you've had into this where you've had the wrong tires on, where the wheel nut's been jammed, where it's not been released on time. Like it's been ridiculous. Like honestly, he must be sat at home sometimes just thinking back to the heydays of when he used to be at Mercedes and when he actually used to get on podiums, and now look at the situation you're in.
I don't know. I feel like once you've reached like that point in your career, don't you just retire? I mean, you either stay in it because you love it and because you don't want to give it up because you don't care about winning podiums. It's just about being part of something. It's just about being part of it. Because obviously these drivers have given up a lot of their life to even have this career. But I feel like if I've dropped down so far, unless I'm doing this because I really love it and I don't want to give up part of my life, I'd just retire. Like live up in the mountains with your Millie. Like, come on, just relax.
I
Live
think
up in the
Bottas is
mountains with your
young.
money.
He's young enough that he could still be in F1, I think. He's not that old. He's not Alonso old.
He's not Alonso old, no, but like, is he going to go back to a winning car? Probably not. I reckon it's just downhill from here. And the reason why is because I find in sometimes in Formula One, people have quite short memories. People won't think, right, we've got a space coming up in Ferrari or we've got a space coming up in Red Bull. Who's going to fill that seat? Bottas. No one's thinking that. Everyone's looking at Oscar Piastri. Everyone's looking at Lando Norris. Everyone's looking at, well, George Russell, even, like Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc.
Well, Carlos
You know
is
what I
definitely
mean?
the poster boy for unemployed. Give me a job next season, isn't he? Like he is
I,
really fighting that battle.
I actually wanted to bring that up, actually. What did you think about Carlos Sainz's race this time round? Because obviously he's been doing particularly well, especially since he had his appendix out. Don't know how that relates, but anyway.
To
I,
live a life. This is his second chance. His second chance.
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't watch much of Carlos during the race, but I mean, where did he finish now? It wasn't like
He finished
anything.
fifth. In fact, he finished fifth, one place behind Charles Leclerc. So, and that's why I was bringing it up because it's interesting that you said about, I didn't watch a lot of Carlos Sainz this race. Now that is interesting because I feel like, are we seeing the old Carlos
Come
before
back.
when he had a job, before when his appendix was in? Before when he had a job. And I'm thinking, I wonder if something's happening, like something happening behind the scenes where he signed a little something, he signed a little deal or something. So he's thinking, I can relax again now, I can rest easy. Knowing next season I've got a seat.
I
Because
don't think so. I don't. Not that I don't think he hasn't got signed any contracts in. I don't think that he'd be so complacent because I still think he's still got a lot to prove. And I think Carlos would still want to prove people, even if he had signed a new contract, he'd still want to be showing that the best of the best. I mean, I did see a rumor that he was offered something very lucrative from Audi, but they're not coming into Formula One for a little bit. So it's not going to be like, anytime soon. But I still think that he would be performing well. I mean, he started seventh, finished fifth, which isn't too bad, but don't think it's exactly what Ferrari would have hoped for in this race. But it wasn't
well,
the worst that could have been.
it wasn't the worst, and I don't think he did a bad drive. And I think considering they were trying that whole similar strategy with well, not similar, sorry, that strategy with Charles Leclerc again, doing the one pit stop kind of race. That didn't pull off as well as it did as it has done previously, but I do think again Charles Leclerc drove quite well too, considering, I mean, Max was always going to win. Perez, oh God, if Perez wasn't in the top three this week, nah, I would have had a cuss. He would have been my should have stayed at home, because he needs to be in the top 3 more regularly, I think. Lando, I was happy to see Lando in P2. You know, I'm always going to want him to be on a podium.
Yeah, he did well.
So because of that, for me, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc being 4th and 5th, I was okay with that, and I think that's as good as it could have got. Again, you know, George being 6th, I was happy with that too. Anytime we mention Mercedes being or George being better than Lewis, or just Mercedes being rubbish in general, Simone will always just let out a big fat sigh.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say about George and Mercedes this weekend. I really and truly don't. There's nothing for me to comment on. I've said all I needed to say about that setup situation that was going on there.
Yeah, and we don't have to upset you anymore. But when I saw that Lewis was starting in P18, I was thinking, wow, I don't think he's been like that low down in a long time. And I should have wrote it down actually, because the commentators on Sky, they did say, they were like, oh, he hasn't been like, not this later, they didn't word it how I'm wording it, but they were like, oh, he's starting in P18, the first time he started that far down in how many years or how many races or whatever it was. And I should have wrote it down when they said it, but I was just like, I don't even want that. I don't want that scribbled on my notebook, because that signifies the downfall of Lewis Hamilton. I'm not here for it. So yeah, lots of incidents, penalties. So because of all the incidences, who got penalties? Lance Stroll got a penalty for going into the back of Daniel Ricciardo 10 seconds. Magnussen got a penalty for taking out Yuki Tsunoda. Logan Sargent got a penalty. Oh man, what was that for again now? I can't remember what his penalty was for, but I do remember him, he didn't spin off, but he basically like went way off the track, and Pierre Gasly just saying, what an idiot. And I just thought, Pierre, you've taken the words right out of my mouth. You really have done this time, Pierre. Like, what? I'm not even going to call somebody an idiot. I don't like it, but... And I don't want to call somebody a loser, because that even feels worse. But what a silly person.
Yeah, there were a few penalties flying around. And did Daniel Ricciardo get a penalty as well?
Yeah, Daniel Ricciardo did get a penalty.
Sorry if you just already mentioned that.
He's got a free. Sorry, say that again.
I said sorry if you already mentioned that.
No, I don't. Did we mention it? I can't remember. But his takes into effect on the next race. He's got like a 3 grid penalty, right?
Yeah, in Miami, and that was because he overtook when it was the safety car.
Yeah.
Everybody knows you don't overtake under a safety car. Like you bring your pace down, like you slow it right down, and you just drive behind. Like you don't overtake, because if you do, obviously you'll have to either give the pace back, or this year you'll be getting penalties. They'll be giving out penalties for joke like candy.
I should have remembered that actually, because that's the comment that I was making earlier when I said everybody get in line and there should be no takeovers. That's why I said it, because Daniel Ricciardo got a penalty for taking over somebody when there's a safety car. Okay, so the other thing, actually, it was, I think Logan Sargent did the same thing. It says here he passed his Haas rival under safety car conditions, which is a breach of Article 55.8 of the sporting regulations. And as a result, he was given a 10-second time penalty plus 2 points for his super license, taking his tally to 8 for the 12-month period. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. I can't believe he's got 8 already. It's only been 5 races.
Dang, that's a lot.
I know, it's only been 5 races. I feel like we need to do a whole like little research backstory into where the hell all these points have come from.
That's a lot. But no, you're right, we do, because my God, he's racking them up over there.
Yeah. Oh, and here we go. I'm just looking at the F1 website now, and he said the penalty for the safety car infringement doesn't really matter in the end. From my perspective, I thought I crossed the line first, when the cars are going at such different speeds, I don't know how I could have known the true order.
Well, you just stay behind the person you're meant to stay behind, but don't
Yeah.
stay behind. No?
Wow. That's what you'd think. I don't know. I genuinely believe that next season there has to be a huge driver upheaval. Is that the right word? We just need to have
Shake up.
a big shake up. New drivers. There has to be.
And I'm sure they will be because a lot of drivers are out of contract. So we'll see.
We will see. Simone, is there any more racing points that you want to talk about? Because I feel like it's time that we get into I should have stayed at home.
No, not for me. Take it away, Chanise.
We're talking about all these penalties and all these incidents. So for me, I think it's time that we get into should have stayed at home.
Should have stayed at home.
Who was yours should have stayed at home?
God, who's I should have stayed at home? Now you're asking. Oh, God.
I can tell you mine first if you want.
I mean, you can tell me. Sure, because you're going to have to.
Okay, fine. I'll go first. I'm gonna go with Lance Stroll
Fair.
because of him going into Daniel Ricciardo, and because usually I'm complaining about Daniel Ricciardo not doing that well, and I genuinely was rooting for Daniel Ricciardo this week, and I couldn't wait to see him finish, even if it was going to be like, you know, P8 or 9, fine. I was here for it. I was cheering him on, and I think Lance Stroll not only took that away from Daniel Ricciardo, but he took that away from me. He took that moment away for me to cheer for Daniel Ricciardo and give him his flowers and have him as my star boy. He took that away from me. So I'm going with Lance Stroll. And also because normally I would go with Magnussen in this situation. But I've complained about his aggressive driving numerous times.
That is fair. That's very fair of you to do that. I don't disagree with you at all for Lance Stroll. My should have stayed at home actually is going to be Bottas. Now, I understand the engine failure was not his fault.
Okay, yeah, because obviously, okay.
But there has been a number of incidents over at Sauber and aka Steak and Chips that they are just repeatedly doing. And I'm just like, someone needs to take some accountability and some lessons over there. And I'm so sorry to have to give it to Bottas because obviously it wasn't actually his fault, but guilty by association.
Okay, yeah, well, that's exactly it. Because you said someone's got to take accountability, and I'm like, I don't think the Bottas is the right person for the accountability, mainly because his engine failed. That's not on him, and also with a lot of the issues, they weren't on him. However, fair enough. But the other thing I would say is that Bottas actually, as you mentioned, went over to Red Bull and was watching their pit stops. So he was trying to learn. So I feel like he is actually trying, you know? Bottas is probably the best one in the team, you know? He's trying to learn. He's trying to do stuff. And half the time these mistakes are happening, they're not even him. But fine, okay, we will accept Bottas.
He actually should have took some engineers over there with him and been like, hey, listen, can you take some notes here? Class is in session. Okay, learn how to do these pit stops quickly, efficiently, and correctly.
Yeah, and get the engine right.
Who's your star boy?
Okay, so my star boy this week is gonna go to. It has to be Lando Norris. I'm looking down the grid and I don't think there's anybody else on the grid for me that could have got the star boy. I think if Perez got P1, he could have been my star boy, but he didn't. He got P3. Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz have been giving them their flowers now for a couple of weeks. There's nobody else on this grid. Even if Alex Albon got into the top 10, there's potential for him there to be my star boy after the last couple of races he's had, crashing out, breaking bits, whatever.
Breaking bits, yeah.
Bits. Yeah, so for me, it has to be Lando Norris. And I know we always say it. For me, Lando Norris it's always a bridesmaid, never the bride. I was thinking about this today.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. But Lando is my star boy as well, actually, because he had a really decent race. And this is the first time I was like, oh my God, I am really backing you in this race. I really and truly am. So well done to you.
And I feel like often sometimes, like you and Anita obviously say, oh, well, he's never won a race. He's never won. Even Oscar Piastri has won a race. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But one, Oscar Piastri won a sprint race. I'm not saying it doesn't discredit him. He's won won a race. But it's like a Grand Prix is like, it's a different scale of race. There's a lot more to it. And I do think Lando consistently has got higher results than Oscar Piastri. So I do still think he is that number one driver in that team. But yes, Oscar shows potential. But there's just something about Lando where until Max stops winning, he's not going to win a Grand Prix. And that is the issue for me. And that's why for me, if Lando or people who just don't often get P2 very often get a P2, for me, they've won the race. Forget about Max. He's in his own different league and he's doing just he's yeah, F1 great, whatever. But Lando for me won that race. And he did a really good job. And I just hope that he continues to do stuff like that to prove to people like you and Anita that he has got it. He's got it.
Yeah, but we're gonna have to see you actually win a race. Like we need to see that in you. You may have won a sprint, but we actually need to see you win, you know, a race. Like, come on, man. Like, we're waiting. Like, don't leave us waiting too long. God damn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, we look forward to Miami in a couple of weeks. Okay.
We look forward to Miami. I remember last year, Miami, celebrities pulled up.
I knew you were gonna say that. I knew you were gonna say that.
God, this is the thing that I love about Miami. It's not even just the parties. It is the celebrities. Oh my God. Do you remember who was it? Was it Will I Am who made up a whole song for it?
Yeah.
Will I Am literally.
Who did he do it with? Was it Lil Wayne or someone?
Yeah, I thought it was Lil Wayne. I was thinking, did I make that up or was Lil Wayne for real like at Miami? Or did I want that to be a thing? Did it happen?
I think it might have happened.
Yeah. And LL Cool J, I think he was doing like the hosting or the presenting or something, and I was down. For it. Yeah, man, Miami just pulls out all the cool celebs and a lot of black celebs too. So
they're there for Lewis. That's what they're there for. They are there for Lewis. Let's not get it twisted. Let's not people be pretending like they're there because they want to see Max win. No. They're there for Lewis because they know him and they like him. Okay? Yeah. That's the only reason.
Let's hope Lewis pulls it out the bag then for Miami.
Yeah, let's not like, you know, put too much pressure on that one because Ferrari, Mercedes, can't really count on them, can you?
No, but yeah, I look forward to seeing the pre-show at Miami. Everyone try and watch it if you can, because it's always a laugh. It's always just so extra. That's the beauty of Miami.
Americans are
extra. Yeah, the race is extra. It's just extra. It's Miami. Yeah.
But before we go, we need to give a shout out to Zhou Guanyu for having his home race, the first Chinese driver to drive on home soil in F1. And if you saw the atmosphere and the reaction after, like, he was so emotional, he was so happy to be there, the fans were really cheering him on, like he was just so happy. And I was like, could you just imagine you've wanted to come to Formula 1 all this time and you've worked so hard to get here, and this is the first time you're at your home race in front of a home crowd.
Yeah, but do you remember in the last episode we were joking about, oh, imagine if he actually won, or imagine if people would have to crash out to do that. But I really wish he got in the top 10. But having said that, his teammate didn't even finish. So
he finished 14th, which isn't that bad.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think 14th. 14th, but when 3 people didn't finish, it's basically like finishing 17th. Do you know what I mean?
God.
Do you know what I mean? So, and the person who was last was Logan Sargent. So it's like you've got Logan Sargent, yeah, that's about right. He would be last, let's say. Then you've got Magnussen, yeah, he would be last. Then you've got Lance Stroll, yeah, fair enough. And then you've got Zoe. And it's like, nah, man. He needed to be
that bad. Jeez.
It's not that bad, but he could have. I wanted him to do even better than what he did, basically. I'm not going to cuss him out. It's an amazing achievement that he's there, but I really wanted him to do like to just pull out all the stops for his home race, but not do a Perez and crash in lap 1 of your home race.
Oh my God, Chanise, you remember that? Oh my God, kudos for remembering that, I must say, because I know your memory is really crap. But
My memory is so bad, man.
Yo, that was peak for him. That was peak. I felt the pain, just the pain. I know he was crying. I know he had tears for breakfast dinner, because he was like, I cried.
When is the Mexican Grand Prix this year?
The Mexican Grand Prix is October 25th and 27th.
Fine. Okay, fine. He's got plenty of time to make up for it and practice. Fine.
Yes, indeed. He has indeed. But anyhow, it is time for us to wave the checkered flag on this race, on this episode. And see y'all in Miami. Well, not actually in Miami, but you know.
One day though, you'll see us in Miami. I'll probably be on the beach sipping a cocktail, watching it on my phone or on my iPad. I'm not gonna lie. I'm there for the parties.
I will be there in person watching the race, not on the beach, but actually there at the track.
Okay, yeah. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Again, let us know what your thoughts are on the sprint races or just on all the penalties and incidents that happened this weekend. We would love to hear your thoughts on it. Ciao.
Bye.